Hello, and welcome to the advanced level of Photoshop tutorials. What I'm going to show you in this class is how to work with the pen tool, and we're going to be working with the pen tool with this elephant, and how to make him a path, and also create shapes out of him too. We'll also be working with creating different textures and going through all of these to really bring out a sense of design movement or characteristics or different activities into the piece and composition. As one of your files I'll give you is a little sum up down here of how I did each of these, but I'll go more in depth about how I processed all of these images with you as well. And you can see I also penciled out the butterfly here and put them in here and used the elephant, made a mask with the butterfly and stuck the elephant inside. First though, I like to show you how to find a strong, large file that you can work with in Photoshop so you don't get any pixelation in the images. What pixelation is that if we zoom up here to 100%, this image looks a little blurry, but that's just because there's motion there. But if you look here, this really isn't that pixelated or pixelated at all. It's very focused at 100%, which is how it would look when it's printed. So I'm going to show you how to find that right now. One thing I like to show you is earlier I was working in pixels for an online animation, and if I want to change this back to inches, all I simply have to do on a Mac is right click and change that to inches, and they've changed so I can read it a little bit better. Just good to know. So I come here to Safari and let's put in the word puppies. Who doesn't love a puppy? I make sure I come to images, and before I just pick one of these and put it on my desktop, I want to come to tools, and you can see a drop down menu has formed. I want to go to size, and I want to stick into these three overall. Now this is depending on how big your document really is. My documents that I work with are usually on the larger scale, sometimes 2 feet by 3 feet, or 11 by 17, which these will be much more safer for if you need to find an image online. This is about the standard size of a screen, and then it goes up from there. Now just remember, if you have a lot of heavy images that you're working with and a lot of layers, it can bog down your document to run slower. So keep that in mind. So I'm just going to come up to here so you can see how the choices change. Also, it's good to get into the habit of using the usage rights, especially if you want to become a professional graphic designer or have your students become professional graphic designers in the future. Now, usually when you're working with a photo, you're going to be using it for modification, or for student work, non-commercial use with modification. So let me just come to non-commercial reuse with modification. And again, narrow down. Now, there's more steps to be had. Let's say I really like this little corgi. I don't want to pick just this image here. Now it's a little blurry because you can see it's loading. But I want to actually come to View Image over on the right hand side, and then this is the image that I want to take. And it's a world of difference. If I would have chose just this little image here, that could be a much smaller size than I originally wanted instead of this one, which could be the correct size. So make sure you go all the way through and pick the largest quality photo. On a Mac, all I have to simply do is click and drag this down, and then it went on my desktop. And you can zoom in and out on this too. And there it is right there, my little corgi. So I'm just going to get out of that, but that's a good way to show your students and to learn yourself how to get an image off Google. Okay. So onto the pen tool. Now I chose the elephant because of the rocks and everything like that. He might be a little bit harder to select with just the selection tools I reviewed in my beginning class with quick selection or even the marquee tool. Now, it could be easier if you had a Wacom tablet and pen, but still, it's great to get into the habit of having the pen tool as your friend. And also trying to pick up some of these little hairs. So when you're working with the pen tool, I've given some extra documents on that. Really what I like to do is make it as big as possible, but give me enough room that I know I can work ahead. And I like to come in just a little bit into the image. If I come in right at the image, I could still be picking up that green or whatever background texture color it is. So I like to come in just a little bit and really work with the shape of it. Now what you can do is that when you're on this, these are little pulls that come out of your anchor point. You can grab onto one of these and control where your pen tool is going. So if I hold down Option, which is a hotkey, same as going to convert anchor point, but Option is much faster. I can move it this way, I can bring it closer, and that allows me more control. And then I just come back to the pen tool, which on your keyboard, the hotkey is P, the shortcut is P. And it's really up to you how big a jump you want to make. Let's say I made a jump this big. It's really hard for me to get that detail of the slope in the ear. So I just went back a step by doing Command Z. And all I'm doing is clicking. My hands are completely off my mouse or my trackpad. Coming here for Option, just tilting that up a little bit, and then I'm clicking. Before I let my hand go, I am pushing it the way I want to. So I'm not pushing it to the left, I'm pulling it to the right. Okay, again, Option, go back in. And sometimes you don't need that. Sometimes it's short enough where it won't make too big of a difference. But so here's a good example where if I come down here, it gives it that awkward bend where maybe if I take my Option, I really have to hover over that little ball there. And if I come down here, it gives me less of a bow and more of a straight line. It really depends on what you want to do with the piece. But I've come down too far, so I actually want to come down here, pick up some of this fur, and then I can come all the way over here and still make that bend work because I am pulling down to my right and so it is going up on my left. Think about how opposites attract. That is how the pen tool likes to work. And then I can take bigger jumps and just suck that in for more control. Sometimes you'll have a lot of anchor points, depending on how confident you feel or how awkward the shape is. But sometimes you can take a lot of big jumps when working with this. And I will still pick up a lot of the curves. Again, if I want just a straight line down, I'd miss all these natural curves of the tusk. So I want to be careful of those, and I actually want to take my pen tool and take my time and pick those up. And it's just a learning process. I mean, this part is easy. But this is why the pen tool is nice, because it would be really hard for a magic wand, even perhaps a quick selection, to differentiate between those two brown colors, where I can clearly see that they're different. Being a program, it might be a little bit harder. Then I can come back and swing this around to the area I want it. Remember, I want to pull to the left now and down, so this way my other side, my line over here, is pulling up and out. And then let's say I took this and I went here. See how it bowed like that? If I would bring this back in, keep it really close to the main anchor point, then I have no problem making that because I'm more in control. Just like this one. I want to suck this one in so I can make that tiny little jump. So this is great practice to work on. Might take a few times. Might need to step back for a minute and breathe after, but it is worth going in, getting all these little details down. Again, if you don't want to practice on an elephant, that could be maybe perhaps slightly too advanced for you. If you're new with the pen tool, you can find a nice rubber ducky online, the round curve, so that will help you, first feel comfortable with being able to move with the pen tool at larger curves, and then two, once you get the knack of the pen tool, you only have to do so many anchor points and then you'll be done. There we go. I'm sucking that back in. It's too close to the edge, so I'm just going to come in a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit better. There we go. Bring that back in. Again, all the detail you can get with the pen tool is pretty amazing. Now, just to fasten this process for all of us a little bit, I'm just going to be a speed racer here and just do around the ear rather quickly. Not getting that green in though. There we go. Obviously, I would normally do the whole elephant, and you can see I really wanted a lot of that detail of the trunk, so there are a lot of anchor points there, where if I was coming from here to here to here, I might need 4, possibly 5 anchor points. So what happens with this is that it is a path, and I need to activate that path. So to make it more like the marching ants of the marquee tools. So I need to come over here, layers, channels, paths, and you can see that it looks like an elephant ear and a trunk. And to activate that into a space, I just need to load my path as a selection. So now I have him all ready, which is great, and I can just come over to my move tool when I want to, and I can move him. But I don't want to do that quite yet, so I'm just going to actually leave him there. What I do want to come back to is over here, and I like to start going down each of these with you and helping you figure out how to work with each of these. So we're going to first start with this one. What I've done here, and with each of these, I've just used one background. I've made copies of them because I always do, but I made one background and I put an effect on some of these. Now, some of these, like this is a brush, and this is just a green bar that I painted in. The rest of these are on top of the image, and that's why I always have this extra one in case I need a fresh start or I need to go back. So coming over here, this is really great for when you just want one beautiful color coming out in black and white. This is very popular with portraits or wedding, or to symbolize some type of growth or interesting statement in your photograph. So if I come over here, what I want to do first, I want to make and label this layer, And then I want to copy this. Again, the hotkey for that is Command J. And I'm going to actually, let me just switch it and lock this and hide this from view and come back on my butterfly back. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select with my marquee tool and just move that over to the edge. And so what I want to do now is that with selection tools, you can actually combine them. So if I went back to my elephant, I could use the quick selection tool and fill in more of the space now that I have him as a selection path. And over here, what I can do is come to my quick selection, hold down Option to make it a negative, and I can select him out. Now you have to be careful because of this other flower here. So maybe I want to paint that one back in, or select that one back in really. And then I want to get a little nitty gritty here. So I'm going to make my brush smaller, again, left bracket. And I'm going to select that back in and select that back out. So you understand the concept. Again, you got to be careful because this is where I would actually use the pen tool more, which you can. But just for demonstration's sake. So what I want to do now is that this is actually selected, the black and white over here, and I selected this out. And I'm going to show you a different way that I'm doing that with my leaves in fall color. But all I have to do is come up to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate, and there we go. I desaturated the image there. So basically I turned it black and white. I took all the color out of it and I left that just purple. And I just want to come up to either select, deselect up here, or Command D. And let me show you how I did that over here. So I have this beautiful 4-leaf pump full of color photograph. But let's say I want to do something where I just have one of the leaves really beautiful, saturated, and the rest more of a monotone black and white or deeper, darker color. I can come over here to my quick select. You can also do this with the pen tool, great practice there. And so right now I actually selected this shape because this is, you know, what I was concentrating on. But I actually want everything else selected. And there's a very easy way to inverse that. You just go to Select, Inverse, and now everything else is selected, okay? And I just come up to Image again, Desaturate down at the bottom, and there you go. So you don't even have to stop there. You can come up to Photo Filter, and you can work with the Destiny, and you can see that it's changing. So you get a more sepia tone with that, or maybe I want a cooler tone. So you can go more purple. Let's go lighter purple. Depends on how much of the density you have. And then push OK, deselect, and there you go. So this is just the different way that I did the butterfly and the flower right there. So good practice and great for photography touches. Now let's go to the second one. So this is called a halftone pattern. So if I look close here, what this does is that it makes up a bunch of little dots, basically an overlapping CMYK. So cyan, magenta, and black. If you think of maybe even pointillism in painting or like a pop art feel, you can get this kind of interesting way. Now again, this is at almost 600%, that's why it looks so pixelated, but it gives a beautiful, interesting texture to it. So again, for this one, we're going to go to Filter, Pixelate, Color Halftone. Now there's a way that you can do black and white halftone, but it is a little bit more difficult. More steps to remember. But halftone color Looks absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm just going to line this right back up. So again, filter, pixelate, and color halftone. And then you can work with this. Sadly, for some reason, it'll give you a preview for this in Photoshop, but you can mess around. These channels actually look pretty good, so you can always copy these if you like, if yours are different, and the max radius as well. But this is an experimental process, and you can always go back and redo it. So you get a very, if you're old enough, 90s effect from this as well, which is really fun. Again, deselect out of there. Next we have just a color bar on a separate layer this time, and then I changed it to screen. So coming back over to my butterfly, and then I'm choosing a new layer, and I'm just going to name this green bar. It can be any color really, but I already have green up there. I'm going to make it a little less neonish, I think. And I'm going to come over here. Behind my gradient tool, there is a paint bucket. All you have to do is pop that right in. Now, obviously you can see the green bar is on top, so that means it must block out the color. But there's ways around that. I can come here to blending modes for my layer, and I can choose different ones. Now, the one I chose to example is my screen. And I can also lower the opacity, and that will affect it as well. But I actually really like it at 100%. Now there's multiple things that you can do here. Again, these are all experimental. Some will work more or look like they're actually on there more than others. Difference is a really fun one. Subtract. Saturation, so you can see how that looks really different from the background now. Multiply, which this is not the best example of multiply. Multiply, as I shown in my beginning class, can really have some beautiful effects. But light, so a little bit different from screen, but still sort of the same understanding. Color dodge. So we're just going to go back to screen. It's actually really fun. And again, Command D or select, deselect to get rid of my marquee tool. And again, so let's see what the next one is. We're going to go to filter, filter gallery, and texture grain. So this will be a really nice add-on to details that your students might want. So this is the filter gallery. You can have a lot of fun in here. What you want to do, you want to actually, that's a good mistake. I'm going to cancel out of this, and I want to make sure I'm back on my butterfly back because I wasn't seeing it. So I am now because it's highlighted in a light gray. So filter, filter gallery, and now we can see it. There we go. And so here's grain. Now I can do all these types of things. Now your students or yourself might want to go a little crazy with these, and that's great to begin with. But remember, a lot of these textures are very dominant, so you want to be very careful about what you want to do. And you have all these options up here that you can play with. Glowing edges was always a friend of mine back in the good old days in high school. But a lot of great things. Maybe you can form some other physical art projects from them, and play with that and see how it translates from hand to computer. But grain is just really nice to add some interesting texture. Now over here you can change it. Now these are just the other artistic textures you can do, but you can work with the intensity. So maybe it's too much right now, the contrast is too much. You can work with that. You can also work with the grain type. So maybe I want this one instead, or horizontal. I mean, they're all going to have different effects, and that's in itself great. But I'm going to stick with regular. I'm going to increase both of these again because I really like how that turns out. And then deselect. And so you can barely see the line that it forms there, but it gives a beautiful texturized feeling. That can really work to maybe even age a photo and have that feeling. So if you have a newspaper project or a magazine project of old-fashioned type of thing, you can possibly work with that. Now, the distorts are really fun. So we're going to go to Filter, Distort, and Ripple. So you always want to move this out of your way so you can sort of see a little bit more what you're doing, even though it's right here. But I like how I can see the whole effect. And you can do that too, actually, by making it smaller. But why not have it at a larger size? Maybe 100 would just be fine. And then working with the amount. So you can see how that's working there. And you can do small or large. And then pushing OK. And the next one is Filter, Render, Different Clouds. So it's kind of like over here when you want to go with difference. It has that sort of same feeling. So Filter, Render, Different Clouds. Render, Different Clouds. Ooh, and that's really fun. Going to the next one. Filter, Liquify, Forward Wrap Tool. So Liquify is really fun. It can be very dangerous because you can get some very surreal looking images from that. Now Liquify is where a lot of professionals can go in and edit a woman's body per se to either make her look bigger or smaller. So when they say I was photoshopped, they probably are correct that they were photoshopped by making lips bigger, cheekbones smaller, hips smaller, maybe breasts bigger. It all can happen with Photoshop, which is both good and bad overall, but just so you know. So these are all different effects that you can play with, and you can see over here even face aware, liquify, and you have all these options. So you can come over here and just start playing with them. So this one is the one that I use, the forward wrap tool. And so I just take this, I swing it forward, and you can see how it's starting to move the composition. So the little checker pattern, remember that's the natural back in Photoshop. And I can swing that around. So it almost is like this liquefied painting essence. It can be really fun. Now I can make this smaller by going my left bracket, make my brush smaller, and giving more of like a dripping, melting effect. I can make my pressure more intense and have it melt faster. That's one way I can do that. And then I can come back here to my reconstruct, and it will just start to move everything back into place. Now I warped a lot of it, so, but it can start to slowly do that. You can see I basically have that flower perfect now, and even if you just hold down and click it, it will try to do its job by flattening in all the creases I just made. But again, I messed with this a lot, so it needs some time to readjust. But it's doing a pretty good job. And then you can come over here to the smooth tool, smooth those edges back out. So you can see, whoop, just suck that right in, which is great. And so it doesn't do the same job as the reconstruct, but you can see how it is trying to smooth out all of those types of things there. Now these ones are really fun as well. Control clockwise. Again, you want to watch out for your pressure size and your brush size. So you can always come over here, or use your brackets. Oh, from 900 to 50, very quickly there. So that can be really fun. Again, you be very careful with these because they can add a lot of distraction to the piece, but they can be a fun way to learn about skewing the image. And then this is the bloating. So this can be really fun if you just have a model in here and you let your students play, or if you want to get this like awkward dimension. So that's really cool how that's bloating that out there. You know, and then this can try to come back and make things a little bit better, but I'll just keep that for now. And you can always reconstruct and restore all as well. So no harm done. If you don't like what you do, you just come back over here. And we're going to push OK there. So a really interesting bloating sensation, which is cool. Alright, our next one is going to be a stylize, and we're going to do a wind effect. So filter, stylize, wind. And you can again test these out, but this gives you a nice sort of motion here. So wind, we have blast, we have stagger, which is really cool too, and we can do from the left or from the right. So that's as easy as that. I can come over here. This is filter, blur, motion blur. So let's see here. So that's really blur. And you can pick the angle too that you like if you just simply come over here. So depending on like the direction you're trying to make things happen. Maybe this is a car driving and you want the speed effect, so you really make it like that, or you want it just slightly like it's speeding through and it has a more blurry essence. That's up for you to decide. And then I'm going to show you how to do a brush. So this is just the back, and you can see here I made a new brush on there, and then I multiplied it. So it was a solid color, and I multiplied it to sort of have the seeping through tone. So I'm going to come back over here. I have just enough room to do my last one too. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this brush layer. So how you load a new brush. Your brush tool is right over here. And then remember, when you're on your tools, you get all these options up top here. I use my left bracket to make my brush smaller. And let's say I want to load up a new one. Now I'll show you how to also get brushes online. Some brushes you do have to pay for, but most you can find for free. So I can just put in Photoshop brushes. And you can see I've already been looking for them. So I can come here. Brush Easy is really nice. It has a lot of free brushes. So if I just put in flames here. Now again, these are sponsored by Shutterstock, so you would have to pay for those. Really nice brushes here. And I actually want to put in smoke. So you can see these really cool effects are happening. You can color all of these. So, you know, if I come over here, and then I can just do a free download. And then I'll skip that. So, automatically downloaded. No. I think I actually pushed it twice, so. And then that will download. Okay? So what will happen is, I'll come over to my brushes, and I'll come up here where I can change my brush hardness and different things. And you can see I have several brushes loaded. Now, some of these are Photoshop default, but they only come with so many. And these are actually newer ones that I downloaded. So this looks like a graphic wave. Here are some that look like the texture that I had over here. Snowflakes. I have smoke-looking ones already. So you want to come over here to this little sort of wheel-looking flower. and all you want to do is go to load brushes. And let's see, mine is here. And I have a file for you. So your file is going to look something like this, and it's going to have ARB at the end. The extension is going to be ARB for brush, and it's going to be a blue color because blue is for Photoshop, so we know that it belongs in that program. Now I already have this brush loaded, but all you'd have to do is click this brush and push open, and then it would load into here. Okay, but I'm just going to randomly select a brush over here, and I'm going to go with one of these guys, and you can see how big it is. Again, I just want to put on my left here, my left bracket, shrink this down a little bit, and then let's see what orange does. And again, it will only select inside here because that's what's selected. And you can see that it has a hard edge. So to get out of this, I can just simply hit B on my keyboard, or I can go to move. Now if I wanted to work with this a little more, I'd honestly probably go to my eraser, which is hotkey E, or over here, right in the middle. And I make this look a little bit more organic. So, and I would get really nitpicky with this. And you also want to make sure this is at 200% and it's still looking good. So you're fine there. But yeah, I would come in here. You can work with lower opacity. You know, so it sort of looks like it's half eaten through. That's up to you to decide. But some of these have very hard breaks, these brushes, so you want to be careful about that. So what I want to come over here, and then I want to multiply. And so it gives this really interesting feel to it, and I can still move this around a little bit too. And then one more for you. I'm going to take this tiny little corner that I have left, and we're going to do image adjustments, color balance. So one last thing I want to show you is I have my last piece selected here. I'm back on my butterfly back, and I'm going to come up to adjustments and then color balance. There we are. So I can move this around, and you can see I got like really pink there, then I can go really blue to make it more purple. I can work with shadows and highlights to really have some fun with that. So there are multiple ways that you can change colors in Photoshop. So if you had a green dress and you want a red dress, simple to do. If you want an orange dress or a blue dress, you can do that too. And then deselect. So let's wrap this up. So I have my butterfly here, and right now I'm just going to actually use my elephant because I already have him selected. So I'm going to bring him on over to my butterfly. And he's just like that because he's underneath here. Butterfly, there we go. All right, and so what I can do now, I can actually make the selection and fill it in with something else and make him a shape. So just be careful. I'll just do that. Making sure I'm on the one that's not locked. And I'm going to get my paint bucket and paint that in. And oh, it's under multiply right now, so I'm going to make that normal and paint him in. Now usually I would just dump a color, but I think because of all the textures that he has inside him, it's a little bit harder. So I can go up to my brush, make sure I'm on a regular brush, and paint him in rather quickly. And then what I can do, I can bring him over. Or actually, yeah, that's fine. I can bring him over like that. So a couple things I'm going to do here. I'm actually going to turn these off so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to shrink him down because I know obviously he's not going to be that big because the elephant is not that big. So I'm just going to shrink him down a little bit, put him there. And the image has to go into the shape. So again, I have my image on top. My elephant head is my shape. And then I'm going to come over here to option, hover down, and there we go. And remember, I can still move him around. So So now having an elephant in a butterfly shape, I have a butterfly in an elephant head shape. And if I want to combine these two, remember I had to click, hold down Shift, and then right click, and then down at the bottom, merge layers. And then there we go. Little trippy right there. But so we went through, played with our filters, worked with the pen tool, and worked with having a pen tool shape or a pen tool path, making it a shape, and then putting an image in the path. So again, I'll include this in your little packet, and then all these extra ones for you to practice with. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, if you want to save this, you just go to File, Save As, and then you can save it as butterfly, or if you're completely done, you don't want to edit again, you can save it as a JPEG or a PDF. If you have any more questions or like to contact me, please email me at shannon.mccarthy.eku.edu. Thank you.